What we're going to do in what Clough called this home for fallen buildings is we're going to take the traditional walk that number 6 makes when he wakes up, which is from here down through the arch below, across the lawn, across the piazza. When you get to the other side of the piazza, go left and go round, and with a bit of luck I'll be standing there. One of the premier views of Portmeirion. This is the one that you tend to see on the chocolate boxes. Let's look around and see what we've got. Okay, we look across. If you'd come here before 1966, you wouldn't have seen the piazza, because that was where the tennis court was. Just think what the prisoner would have been like with the piazza as a tennis court. It wouldn't have worked. The campanile looks taller than it is because Sir Clough was very skilled at perspective. It actually tailors in and gets narrower as it gets taller. So those buildings along the top there really were all built and complete by him by the outbreak of the Second World War. The dome was built, the Pantheon, because he felt the village had a dome deficiency. Over the years, various people said to him about turning it into some sort of temple, but he fiercely resisted that. And if you go inside, there should be on the wall a lovely painting of Sir Clough trying to explain, when he gets to heaven, to other architects exactly what Portmeirion's all about. If you look at Chantry Row, which is between Chantry and the Pantheon, it appears to be 2 stories. It isn't, it's only 1. It's Sir Clough's clever idea of perspective. Just as when you look at the Gloriette and it's got the painted on windows, you think that there's more to it. Asked to justify the Gloriette, he just said, well, it looks handsome and jolly. End of story. The hotel building, and beyond the hotel is White Horses, which is the oldest building of all in Portmeirion. Sometimes it gets flooded at high tide, and it was originally a foundry, because Portmeirion came into being really to transport slate from the slate quarries around to all the roofs of the world. So the slate was brought here, went down to the quay and went off. It was a proper working harbour, but it fell into disuse, and in the 1850s it became private, and it had an owner that turned these wonderful gardens behind us into an arboretum. If you haven't been in the woods, do. It's a brilliant time to go in the woods. You've only got to look at the rhododendrons behind you, the azaleas, the camellias, and they're all coming out. The building behind us over there, the playroom, or the theatre, plays every half hour a show about Portmeirion that's voiced by Sir Clough. So if you haven't been in there, do. This used to be a swimming pool, the fish pond here. A stream runs down, runs under here, comes out in the fish pool and carries on down to the cascade. Villa Winch, left of Chantry, was completed just before the prisoner, and it's named after Henry Winch, who was a friend of Sir Clough's. He and his wife lived, you know where Castle Duydraith is, and on the left hand side there's some buildings there. They used to live in there, and they had a mini moke and lent us their mini moke for our first convention, which was very nice of them. So this is some of the buildings. You've seen the early ones, and these are some of the later ones. The restaurant wasn't built actually until the 1970s. That's a comparatively late edition. We're going to go down and make our way to the statue of Hercules holding up the world. And if we go down the road, you will see a petrol pump, and it's got the head of Mercury. It's an old National Benzol Company head. It was actually pilfered, taken, disappeared for many years. They had another one made, and a dealer saw it at auction and bought it for £750. And then, as the guidebook says, being a man of sound principles, he sold it back to Portmeirion for double that figure. When I come and I do this, there's always something different, something I forget, something I remember. To do a really good tour of Portmeirion would take, obviously, much longer. This is a kind of whistle-stop guide. The thing about Portmeirion is, looking at perspectives, things always look slightly different depending where you stand, and something catches the eye. And line of sight. He was very clever. You look at the line of sight going up there, and it just leads you up. You go up, and you've got a loggia, inside which is a golden Buddha. There was a film made near here called The Inn of the Sixth Happiness. You may have heard of it. It was all about China, and it was Ingrid Bergman playing the part of a missionary going to China. Thank you. And there are a number of leftovers, which included the Buddha, which was rescued by Clough and found a home there. The dome originally was green, you may remember, but because Sir Clough was building very much on what money was available, the whole thing was built out of kind of 2x4 and plywood. When the village decided to have it done properly, the Portmeirion Trust, they went for copper, which would of course turn green, only it never has. Wrong type of copper. A couple of other things that come from the film The Inn of the Sixth Happiness are the two Siamese twins on the columns on the piazza. In the woods, when you wander around, there's some lovely ponds, and there is in fact an abandoned gold mine not far from one of the ponds. It goes in about 20 yards, and they found a single nugget of gold, and it was abandoned. But if you bought your pick and shovel, the next nugget may be just inches away. We're now going to go to somewhere where day visitors normally aren't allowed, and that's Battery Lawn. We'll walk up Friday Street, go up there, turn left in front of the Dolphins and carry on. There's a lovely hideaway at the bottom there that you can explore on your way that people don't know about, so you can see the arches. Wind up through round the back of Government, out on the lawn, and I'll see you there. Thank you. Oh, finally, this was so apposite, wasn't it, for the prisoner, seeing the globe on top of the shoulders. This is dedicated to the glorious summers enjoyed in Portmeirion. You'll see them here to the summer of 1959 in honour of its splendour. Becomes apparent why. Here we've got the cannons. It is a lovely view because you can look down onto the hotel. Beyond that is White Horses and the camera obscura. The camera obscura is a wonderful Victorian device. I've seen it featured in a film called A Matter of Life and Death, where you use mirrors, concave mirrors, and a system of rods, and you can see on a white base in front of you light coming from outside and what people are doing outside, so you can spy on them and they don't even know. The estuary here is tidal. The tide comes in very quickly. The river course of the Glaslyn alters. You'd see it would be hopeless now to be anything like a harbour. The stone boat was built because Sir Clough did have a ketch. He had a schooner there. But unfortunately there was a particularly rough tide. It broke loose and it went off over there on a journey of its own and ran aground, and of course at low tide its back was broken and abandoned. So he decided to build, using bits retained from it, that called the stone boat, which is very idiosyncratic and fits in perfectly with the mood of the Prisoner series. This is Watch House. It's a little abode. It's not self-catering, but people love staying there. It's just a room with a bathroom. You have to be available to go to the Mother Hotel for meals, etc. But it's ever so nice, and it's very, very private staying there.
Usually. Except when you
Now, have you put the kettle on? There's about 35 for tea.
Okay, you take it.
Looking behind us, the Campanile, believe it or not, I mean, I've been up the top there. Bit dangerous, I know. But one of those rooms, pre-Second World War, it was a hotel room.
Really? Hotel room.
Yes. I mean, talk about basic. Well, of course, one of the people that came here was Noel Coward, who said to his companion that he really wanted to write something that was very humorous, very funny. He wanted to write a comedy. So he said, I can't write in London, it's too noisy. So they booked into Portmeirion, and he went into, I think it was Anchor. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they were there, it was Fountain, thank you. Literally, over a matter of a long weekend, he wrote the entire script of Blithe Spirit. Extraordinary achievement. You remember in the opening episode, you see number 6 going around the staircase, an outdoor staircase, and keeps looking through the loggia arches. If you were able to continue down there, that's where it would go. So if you've been looking for it, that's where it is. We're going to go to one final place, which is the Belvedere Outlook, that Sir Clough described as being the premier perspective in all of Portmeirion. All of you go to supermarket car parks, don't you? And don't they look horrible? How do you find your car? There's this huge swathe of tarmac, and they are soulless, cheerless places. Sir Clough thought so, and he thought, if I do a car park, I want it to be a car park. And the original car park, if you go out through the exit, it's just slightly off to the right, and there is spaces for cars between trees. It's not used so much now, but when I first saw it and read about it, I thought, how civilised. Sir Clough was greatly in favour of beauty, which he just seemed to think was a necessity. And so it is. Logically, you could make a claim for it. But instinctively, we all know that we respond to beauty. The approach into Portmeirion was designed to give it a Mediterranean feel. That's why, in the 1950s, he built Gatehouse and then Bridge House, with the idea that you would burst out into bright Mediterranean colours. And it's accentuated because it's also enclosed. McGowan was looking for somewhere for The Prisoner, and he visited Portmeirion to film for Danger Man in 1959. Because Portmeirion was a gift, if you wanted to show that someone had gone abroad and you didn't want to spend the money of doing it, well, you go to Portmeirion, it's Italianite. It's what you want it to be. So he said in an interview, he thought he came into this village in a bronze Aston Martin, and he thought, here is a place that I could use for that idea that I've got that's always been in my head about a man being confined, battling against the system. So it was coming here in 1959 that gave him that idea. And of course, come the time, he wrote to Clough, and Sir Clough was very unsure about this because he didn't want his lovely village invaded. And the stories are that he agreed. They were here for that month of September 1966. They came back for pick-up shots, as they're called, and further footage the following April. And you could always see the difference between the lovely sunshine of September and the chilly-looking shots that are the following April. But when they were filming, Sir Clough would be there in his yellow stockings, and if anyone dropped anything, he'd go along and he'd pick it up and put it in the bin. For coming into the village, the original toll was just here. This is a toll booth. As you go by, you'll see what's like a barber's pole, and that used to come down across the road. And the man, the porter, would stand behind this little alcove here inside. And there's all these little touches that you can see. His daughter designed the sheep there because that used to be a shop selling woolens. So there's all these bits and pieces around. The front of the Pantheon, believe it or not, was the top half of a fireplace in a building in Flintshire. Imagine the full size of it. A fireplace bigger than my house. So we'll go underneath Bridge House, we'll then bear right, and Belvedere's just a stone's throw away. This is it. This is the Belvedere Outlook. Only used in one episode, Dance of the Dead. But it's got that memorable speech in, hasn't it, from the radio, "Nowhere is there more beauty than here." And how opposite that is.
Who's the girl in it?
Norma West.
Right.
It's the girl episode, because if you think about it, all the major roles are played by women. The part was originally written for number 2 as a man to be Jack the Ripper. But Mary Morris had played, it was actually written for Trevor Howard, but Howard declined. And Mary Morris had played Peter Pan on stage, and she wished to be Peter Pan, so that's how that change came about. It's perhaps one of the most baffling episodes. Part of the reason for this is that a crucial voiceover was never actually recorded. You know, when he goes into the cave and he does the voiceover, whoever may find this when he's got the body, the whole voiceover was actually much clearer. The dialogue made things very clear. But in his rush, because it was an episode that was put to one side and abandoned, they didn't know what to do with it. They were lost for an ending, and it was John Smith, the editor, who rescued it, looked at it, thought how beautiful it was, and said to Patrick, "Can I do something with this?" And Patrick said, "Sure." So John re-edited it, put on the best ending he could, which is a bit of a confusing one, and got Patrick to do the voiceovers. In the original script, it ends with everybody dancing faster and faster and faster, as if the devil is playing, and the camera pulls right back over there until the village is nothing but a glow in the night. Anyone here not been below? You've all been below?
No.
Okay, right. If you go below, you come to the grotto, and that's worth going to. And then the path leads you down through the wood, and you come to below Battery Lawn, where there are the loggias that will take you down the staircase to the sea and go along there. So what I've given you is a kind of a thumbnail sketch of Portmeirion, a bit about it. It's in a sense it's more or less complete. The last building that was built was a gazebo or lookout in 1983, opened by Sir Hugh Casson, that's on the far side of the amphitheatre. There's been a screen open in the woods since by one of the ponds. There's a couple of what they call tings, Chinese shelter points that are very ornamental. But by and large, the village was complete. Sir Clough, towards the end of his life, felt that he'd done what he wanted to do, and as he faded from the scene, he felt that Portmeirion had the impetus and the structure to be able to go forward with confidence. And so it has. Sometimes it's used as a film set for other things, but it will always be associated with the prisoner. And the Prisoner 2 has kind of taken on this life of its own. If you'd asked me in 1977, when I thought I was going to meet 6 people in a pub somewhere and have a pint, and that would be it, not that we'd have a total throughput of over 60,000 members, is just quite astonishing. So the Prisoner 2 has taken on this life of its own, and each year we come back, some of us, we look a little older, a little tireder, but people come back who weren't even alive when the series was shown. So that's very promising for the future. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for coming on the walk. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you're around next year, it'll be different again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Each year, the annual event.
Oh yeah, I always do the walk.